I wanted to do an updated opinion on living in Charlotte because I think Charlotte, the city, has changed aggressively since the pandemic in ways that have definitely changed my opinion, changed my desire for how I live, if I want to stay here or not. And I also finally gave in to trying out ChatGPT. I did ask ChatGPT about criteria I would use to rank a city, and it gave me 13 criteria points, including diversity and inclusion, career opportunities, cultural scene, community support, safety, personal empowerment, cost of living, access to healthcare, transportation accessibility, educational opportunities, housing options, entertainment, and recreation and environmental factors, okay? We're going to go over each 13 points. Let's talk about diversity and inclusion. It's supposed to consider the city's racial and ethnic diversity, the level of inclusivity and acceptance of diverse cultures, and look into initiatives or organizations promoting diversity and equity. I think somewhere between maybe a 6.5. Charlotte is a very diverse city, but it is not very inclusive. And it lacks a lot of support, and it lacks the infrastructure to really create meaningful opportunities for its diverse community. I think the Raleigh-Durham area handles the inclusion part of diversity better than a Charlotte does, because it's diverse, but like there's not really a way, unless you're from those communities, to fully integrate yourself or to even like experience those other communities. Like, you think there is a sort of, is it Southeast Asian community here? But I just think for as large as the Asian community is here, we don't have an H Mart. We don't have like a true Korean grocer here. You get like mom and pop shops that are struggling to hang on, that are not getting a lot of visibility from the mainstream powers that exist in the city, whether it's city council, whether it's the Charlotte Observer, whether it's the community of means that exist here. I think for as diverse as Charlotte is, it's very frustrating that every time CLT5 is posting about a new something, it's a pizza shop or a brewery. And I think other cities that do it better, as a person who lived in New York, the only city that I've lived in longer than where I'm from, which is Delaware, and Charlotte, which has been the longest city since I've lived in New York City, I lived in New York for like 9 years. And I think it's unfair to constantly try to compare these cities who are not metropolises, who are not urban centers, to a New York City. But it goes without saying, inclusion is way better in New York. But for a comparable suburban city that does really well, that's not a DC or New York, Houston. I think Houston does really well, not only with being a very, very diverse city, but allowing those cities to create solid communities and sort of the infrastructure around those communities being able to allow people to come in and experience the culture that they have to offer. All right, career opportunities, I'm going to go with a 4 out of 10. Because the city has gotten so much more expensive since the pandemic, the pay grade has not changed at all. It has not caught up at all. And the pay grade when I moved here in 2018 was already low. I think it's wild that people will work at Novant Health, the larger hospital system here, and they're making like $15, $14 an hour in 2023 doing administrative work. That is obscene to me. I don't know that outside of banking and outside of like sales positions, that there is a lot of diverse ranges of type of work that you could take on here. I do think in context of Charlotte, the RDU area has better job options. And other cities, Dallas hands down. I appreciate it in Dallas and Houston that regardless of your education level, you could find a decent paying job that you could work your way up. Right? If we're going to invest in this capitalistic system, can it pay an equitable range? The next one is cultural scene. I think Charlotte has a lot of potential. And I think as the city grows, it will vastly transform in the next 5 years. But the city and the power players and the political system in the city needs to invest in allowing more diversity to exist within the cultural scene. I'll give it like a 5 out of 10. And when I lived in Houston, I was kind of surprised that Houston didn't have a more robust museum scene. Surprisingly, like, you're not going to beat the museum and the cultural experience that you get in DC. I think of all the cities I've lived in, DC probably offers all around. If everything can't go to New York, DC offers a top tier cultural scene. Dallas has a decent amount of museums, but it's very like white coded. It's very like for the, suburban wealthy white person. The music scene here is decent. A lot of concerts come here. I also think the proximity to Atlanta helps. It's a 3.5 hour drive to Atlanta. Plenty of shows come to Charlotte. I think the city has a great potential for where it could go. I'm a little concerned about will it foster that potential. Raleigh-Durham does have like slightly more. Y'all got Wegmans, like grocery store. Grocery store is cultural to me. A Raleigh-Durham area definitely has a better offering than Charlotte. Let's do the next one is community support. I am not from Charlotte. And so I feel like this is heavily colored by, have I done enough to invest in the community here? Maybe I could have invested more. I'll give this a 9 out of 10 for right now. Charlotte has been one of the easier suburban cities for me to build some community in. When I think about making friends and making connections that I think will last a lifetime, it's been a lot easier for me to do that here. But I also think that's also where I'm at in life and who I am as a person. But I think Charlotte maybe doesn't have a great food scene here, but it has a great network of very supportive Black chefs. I'm friends with Sabrina and Greg, and they own Uptown Yoke and Leah and Louise, and they do the Bay Haven Food Festival. If you're into food, I definitely think it's one of the events that's worth traveling to. 10 out of 10, I'm a big fan. Personal empowerment is the city's atmosphere for personal growth and self-expression. The availability of educational opportunities, mentorship programs, and spaces for empowerment. I gave personal empowerment a 3 out of 10. I feel like, Charlotte, you have to be, in the current climate post the pandemic, you have to be a very, very self-motivated person. I think there's a grand old opportunity for change, and I think the city is trying to work towards that, but the problem is we also have a supermajority Republican state legislature. So like the funding for education, we have a UNC Charlotte where I go. My department is quite literally being defunded each year that I've been in it. It's like they're getting less and less funding to run the history program. Obviously, the RDU area has Duke, has UNC Chapel Hill, even with the proximity to Greensboro, where NC A&T, North Carolina State, there's better schools, especially for even at the graduate level, right? There's better offerings in the Raleigh-Durham and adjacent to the Greensboro area. I think everyone's going to have a different take on safety. I have never lived in any city where I felt unsafe. I'm going to give safety here because I've never been robbed. I have not been assaulted. I don't really go out a whole lot here either, though. I don't know that I can give a fair assumption of safety, right? I haven't really thought a whole lot about safety. I mean, it's not like a LA, San Francisco, Oakland, like people like my car getting robbed. I've never thought about it. So we'll give it a 7 out of 10. Cost of living. Now, this is why I wanted to do an updated video on Charlotte, because Charlotte has gotten extremely expensive since the pandemic. When I first moved here, you could definitely go out and have like a good cocktail for $7, $8, $9. Everywhere here now starts at $14. Everything is like, to go out to eat, all the meals are like over $20. Housing, the apartments here have gotten very, very expensive. Like sometimes you'll pay more because the city offers more, right? I think people will pay to live in New York because there's a lot of industry in New York and there's a lot of opportunity. You can literally walk out the door and find something to do. People will pay to live in DC because jobs pay a lot in DC. There's also a lot of cultural happenings in DC. DC offers a lot. People will pay to live in certain places because there's something that makes that cost of living worth it. And I do not feel like Charlotte offers that. I don't think that Charlotte has netted the return of what it requires for you to live here. Charlotte also has very small homes. These homes are 1,000 square feet. They're 1,200 square feet. They're 1,700 square feet, and that's on the bigger side. And it's $400,000 or $500,000. Why am I paying $350 for 1,100 square feet? And it has a nerve to have 4 bedrooms in it. Where the hell are you putting 4 bedrooms in 1,100 square feet? The cost of living here is insane. You can live in another city and be like, okay, well, I don't need a car, so I'll pay this premium to live in the city center so I don't have to drive. You don't really have that option here in Charlotte. Yeah, cost of living, I'm going to give Charlotte a 4 out of 10. I think North Carolina in general has a problem with housing and the overall cost of living. I don't know that anywhere is paying enough to justify the cost. The next one is access to healthcare. 2 out of 10. The Northeast eats everybody up with access to healthcare. You know, the blue state, the blue dot in the blue state, Medicaid expansion, and just even Obamacare options that do something, you know? Me and Charlotte, I'm in school, so I have health insurance, which has gotten more expensive since I started school, and also offering less. But the best healthcare options without paying for private insurance outside of like a New York, Delaware, because New York, you could actually go to clinics. Like, you might be there all day, but clinic option was available. Houston the city somehow has like a women's healthcare program so that even if you don't have insurance, you can still get your pap smear and birth control. You only have 2 options when it comes to the doctor here. You can either go to Novant or you can go to Atrium. It is incredibly difficult to find a private practice doctor here. And then when they are private practice, they do not accept insurance. And in Houston, I could get like the women's healthcare plan and go to private practice, or I could pay out of pocket for private practice doctors because they existed. Transportation and accessibility. Absolutely 1 out of 10. This is a car-centric city with no sidewalks. I am blown by how many neighborhoods that should be walkable. And that would actually help small businesses being able to populate those areas. You get out to the main drag and there's a bunch of like little shops, but it's hard to walk because you just walk it on the side of the road. The bike lanes are only in the nicer neighborhoods, right? The bike route is just the street. You just ride it with the cars. The trails here are decent, but the trails here that are nice are concentrated. Freedom Park, Ray Road, Ballantyne area. The yoga moms get all the nice things. So like South Charlotte is being overly developed. But the areas that have historically held the heart of Charlotte's population, overlooked. Educational opportunities. I'm in school here. Obviously, I already said UNC in Chapel Hill, NC State, North Carolina A&T, better options, Wake Forest, better options up in the RDU. It's decent, you know what I mean? But I think even like colleges existing in the city would also help with low cost options. Like you want to go to the dentist, there's one program here and it's at the community college. Educational opportunities in Charlotte, we're going to give a 4 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 for housing. Charlotte has small houses. And these houses are going for like 400,000 or 500,000. You know, a lot of the thing that saves Charlotte with housing is that you can live in South Carolina. You can live, Rock Hill's getting expensive, but I mean, I've got people that live as far as Gaffney that drive into Charlotte every day. You can, if you're willing to, and especially if you're from here, live a little further out. There's a lot of suburbs around Mecklenburg County that are still kind of affordable. I resent the idea that I have to move far out in order to afford a city like Charlotte. You're not offering enough for me to up my transit time. Okay. What city have I lived in that has better options for housing? It's so expensive everywhere, and everywhere's going through this. Yeah, I think Dallas has a better housing landscape. Delaware. I think enough concerts come here. The city is easy to get in and out of. Like, I can get cheap flights to other places. And it's short. I appreciate that it's short haul flights, right? Like, I appreciate that if I want to go to New York or DC, it's an hour flight. I'm gonna give Charlotte a 7 out of 10. The Zennials, I love it here. You know, your white linen parties happen here. Your Charlie Wilson parties happen here. You know, the gospel quartet scene is huge here. Old Black Southern folk. You could have a good old time here. Yeah. I think the entertainment scene is actually pretty decent here. You get a nice mix of if you want to be outside and be in the streets and if you want to be in the house. But I'm also older. I'm not a young kid trying to like be at the club. I have never been to the club in Charlotte and I cannot tell you. What city that I've lived in that has better entertainment than Charlotte? I mean, obviously New York. That would be about it. But I think our DC, because you can do a lot of plays. Environmental factors, the city's climate, air quality, access to green spaces, commitment to sustainability and environmental initiatives. There's some greenways here. I do like to ride a bike on a trail. We do mom walks. As I said before, the greenways that I like, one's in Ballantyne off of Ray Road and the other one's by Freedom Park. Those are both very expensive neighborhoods. Very nice long trails. And we do little mom walks on Sunday mornings when it's not too hot. And I have a good time. Granted, I haven't paid a lot of attention to like air quality. And I feel like because it hasn't been brought to my attention as an issue, I'm going to say it's all right. Does the city have a commitment to sustainability? I don't know. I live I go to the recycle spot all the time. It's very easy to recycle here. It's very easy to donate stuff here. It's a car-centric city. So if I feel like if it's going to be about sustainability, there would be more public transportation. There would be more accessibility. If I'm thinking about where to go next, I am fixated on some point in time living in Chicago. Even if I just live in Chicago for like 2.5 months, I guess. Is that the sacrifice I have to make? I would like to have an extended stay in Chicago and or New Orleans. I would just like to travel up the Mississippi, to be honest. You know, I don't want to stay in Memphis too long, but I like to experience Memphis. Come on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Jouelzy. It's where I do all my live streaming.